Some places are not haunted by what died there, but by what refuses to leave. Tonight's case involves an apartment where tenants didn't see ghosts. They felt watched, followed, and psychologically hunted. And every single person who lived there left behind the same chilling detail: a red door that should never have existed. In 1998, a quiet residential building in an older district of a Midwestern American city started getting a reputation no landlord wants. The building itself looked completely ordinary. 4 floors, narrow hallways, aging wallpaper, and flickering stairwell lights. Nothing was remarkable, nothing suspicious. But apartment 412, it was different. Tenants moved in, tenants moved out. Quickly. At first, neighbors just assumed it was normal turnover. Students, temporary workers, families relocating. But soon, patterns began to emerge. Every resident who stayed longer than a few weeks complained about the same things. Footsteps in the dead of night, doors opening by themselves, unexplained knocking, and a constant, unnerving feeling of being watched. Yet, the strangest detail of all was the door. According to the building's official blueprints and all the maintenance records, apartment 412 was supposed to have a standard white hallway door. But every resident insisted that a door inside their apartment, the one leading to a small storage room, was painted a deep, dark red. The building's maintenance staff claimed that room never even had a door at all. The first well-documented case occurred when a tenant named Melissa Carter moved in during the summer of 1999. Melissa was a nursing student who worked grueling night shifts. She initially enjoyed the apartment because it was cheap, quiet, and close to the hospital. For the first 2 weeks, nothing unusual happened. Then, small disturbances began. Kitchen cabinets she knew she had closed were found wide open. The bathroom light would turn on by itself. Soft thumps came from inside the walls. Melissa blamed it all on exhaustion from her demanding schedule. Until one night, returning home at 3:17 a.m., she noticed something strange. A door she had never seen before. There, at the end of her hallway, stood a dark red wooden door. Melissa just assumed she had somehow overlooked it when she moved in. Confused, she opened it. Inside was a small storage room, completely empty except for dust-covered flooring and an old, bare ceiling light. But what truly unsettled her was the air inside. It felt colder, heavy, and the smell reminded her of rust. She quickly closed the door and went to bed, trying to forget about it. But the next morning, the door was gone. In its place was just a blank, featureless wall. After that night, Melissa began documenting the strange occurrences. Footsteps pacing just outside her bedroom every single night. Her bedroom door slowly creaking open around 3 a.m. Soft knocking coming from inside the walls, as if something was trapped. One night, she woke up completely unable to move. It felt like classic sleep paralysis, but what she saw terrified her. Standing at the end of her bed was a tall shadow figure. It wasn't transparent or ghost-like. It was a solid, three-dimensional darkness shaped like a man. And behind it, she saw the red door again, standing open in the darkness of her hallway. The next morning, Melissa found dark bruises on her arms, as if someone had grabbed her forcefully while she slept. She moved out 2 weeks later, but her horrifying experience wasn't unique. Between the year 2000 and 2006, 7 different tenants occupied apartment 412, and every single one of them left within a matter of months. Their testimonies were eerily consistent, almost as if they were reading from the same script. They all reported hearing footsteps pacing at night. They all saw doors open slowly on their own. They all found objects moved while they slept. And they all felt watched while they were alone. And most disturbing of all, every single one of them reported seeing a red door appear somewhere inside the apartment. It showed up in different locations, sometimes in the hallways, sometimes in closets, sometimes just appearing on the living room walls. But it was always the same door, and behind it, just darkness. One tenant, Mark Hughes, described waking up one night to see the red door standing at the foot of his bed. Paralyzed with fear, he watched it slowly swing open. He said something moved inside the darkness, something tall, something human-shaped, something that did not belong there. He packed his bags and left the apartment the very next morning, never looking back. By 2007, the rumors about apartment 412 had spread, and a small paranormal investigation group requested access. They set up cameras, audio recorders, and motion sensors throughout the unit, hoping to capture proof. For the first 2 nights, nothing happened. The apartment was silent. Then, at 3:12 a.m., on the 3rd night, the motion sensors in the hallway triggered. The cameras recorded the hallway lights flickering violently. An unexplained shadow was seen moving across the walls. But the most disturbing footage came from the camera placed inside the living room. For just a few moments, the camera captured what appeared to be a red door, standing against the far wall, where nothing should be. It remained visible for only 3 seconds, and then it vanished. The investigators immediately rushed into the room to check. Nothing was there, just a blank wall. Later analysis of their audio recordings picked up faint knocking sounds, coming from inside the walls. This was followed by what sounded like faint, raspy breathing. No one on the team was willing to stay another night. So what was really happening in apartment 412? Local historians later uncovered some disturbing information. Decades earlier, long before the current building even existed, the land it stood on housed an old boarding house that was destroyed by a massive fire. The old records show that a tenant had allegedly locked himself inside a small storage room and died during the blaze. Witnessed reports from the time of the fire mentioned that his door was painted red. Firefighters supposedly heard him banging from behind the door, but were unable to reach him in time. The boarding house was demolished, and the new apartment building was constructed years later, directly on top of its remains. Was the red door a psychological imprint left on the land? A residual haunting replaying a tragic event over and over? Or was it something else entirely? Something that actively followed people once they noticed it? No one knows for sure. Apartment 412 still exists, but tenants rarely stay long. The current residents claim that the building's management recently renovated the unit. They removed strange features, repainted everything, hoping to erase its history. Yet, occasional tenants still report waking up in the middle of the night to see a red door somewhere inside their home, waiting, and sometimes it's slightly open. Subscribe to Tales of the Dark, where every story gives you a new nightmare. Have you ever stood by a body of water, so still, it felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for you? By day, it's a postcard picture of nature's beauty, sunlight dancing on the surface, birds singing in the surrounding pines, the air fresh and clean. But as dusk bleeds into the sky, a different kind of magic takes over, a chilling, ancient magic. The locals know it. They warn visitors, don't get too close to the water after dark, because that's when the lake starts to talk. They call it Whisper Lake for a reason. Faint ghostly whispers rise from the water's surface, carried on the evening breeze. They sound like fragments of conversations, snippets of lives lived long ago. Some say it's just the wind rustling through the reeds, or the water lapping against the shore. But those who have truly listened know better. These are voices, and they're not coming from this world. The legend is as deep and murky as the lake itself. Beneath these serene waters lies a ghost not of a person, but of an entire town. The village of Oakhaven. It was a small, thriving settlement in the late 1800s, nestled in the valley. But progress, as they say, is a relentless river. The government decided this valley was the perfect location for a new reservoir to supply the growing cities downstream. The residents of Oakhaven were forced to leave, abandoning their homes, their church, their school, their entire lives. As the dam was completed, the waters slowly rose, swallowing the town whole. Houses, streets, and memories were all submerged, lost beneath a new, man-made lake. The town drowned, and some say its spirit never left. One of the most chilling accounts comes from a fisherman named Ben, a man who had been fishing these waters since he was a boy. One foggy morning, he was out in his boat, the mist so thick he couldn't see the shore. He cast his line and waited in the silence. But the silence didn't last. He started to hear something, a faint melody. It sounded like an old nursery rhyme, sung by a child. The voice was soft, ethereal, and seemed to come from right beside his boat. Ben froze, his heart pounding. He called out, thinking a child might be lost near the shore, but the singing just stopped. He sat there for what felt like an eternity, surrounded by nothing but fog and the echo of that haunting song. He quickly reeled in his line and rowed back to shore as fast as he could, vowing never to fish alone on a foggy morning again. Then there's the story of a young couple, Maya and Liam, who decided to camp by the lake for a romantic weekend. They set up their tent, built a campfire, and watched the stars come out. The whispers. At first, they thought it was other campers nearby, but the voices were strange, disjointed. They heard a woman crying softly, a man muttering about a poor harvest, the laughter of children playing a forgotten game. Liam, trying to be brave, shone his flashlight across the water, but the beam just disappeared into the inky blackness. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, swirling around their tent. They sounded desperate, pleading. Terrified, Maya and Liam packed up in a panic, their romantic getaway turning into a nightmare. They drove away without looking back, the sound of phantom voices chasing them down the empty road. They arrived, armed with high-tech equipment, EVP recorders, thermal cameras, and even a small remote-operated submarine with a camera. Words like help, water, home, and cold were clearly audible on playback. The most disturbing capture was the clear voice of a little girl asking, "Is Papa coming home soon?" The real breakthrough came when they deployed the submarine. As the ROV descended into the murky depths, the grainy footage revealed a surreal, submerged world. They saw the ghostly outlines of buildings, their wooden frames softened and decayed by a century underwater. They navigated through what was once a main street, passing the skeletal remains of a general store and a blacksmith's shop. The most haunting sight was the town's church. Its steeple, though tilted and crumbling, was still pointing towards the surface, a silent plea to the sky. The camera panned past a window, and for a fleeting second, the light caught something inside. It looked like a face, pale and distorted by the water, staring out from the darkness. The operator panicked, pulling the ROF back, but the image was seared into their minds. Their investigation added a new, concrete layer to the legend. They confirmed the town's existence and captured evidence that was hard to dismiss. They would appear and disappear in an instant, often right where the whispers were heard most clearly. The team concluded that the lake held a powerful residual energy, the collective emotional imprint of a community torn from its home and submerged by the relentless march of time. More recently, a historian named Dr. Alistair Finch became fascinated with the story. He spent months digging through old county archives, looking for records of Oakhaven. He found more than just property deeds and census data. He found personal diaries and letters from the former residents. One letter from a woman named Alara described the town's final days. She wrote of the heartbreak, the great flood that was coming to wash away our memories. They didn't want to be forgotten. Dr. Finch believes the whispers are not a curse, but a desperate attempt to be remembered, a collective psychic echo from those who lost everything. His research unearthed another detail. The project was rushed, and the valley was flooded ahead of schedule due to unexpected heavy rains, trapping some families who hadn't evacuated yet. They aren't just echoes of memory. They could be the final, desperate cries of those who were trapped. Warning: some places of worship are meant to bring peace. Others are said to trap something far darker. Tonight's case follows an abandoned rural church where visitors claim prayers are still whispered at night, even though no congregation has gathered there for nearly a century. And those who enter after dark often leave believing they were not alone inside. Hidden deep within forest land, miles from the nearest highway, stands the decaying remains of what locals once called Black Hollow Church. The building is small, wooden, and nearly swallowed by trees and vines. Its steeple collapsed decades ago, its stained glass windows shattered, and the pews inside rot beneath layers of dust and fallen leaves. Today, few people even know it exists. It no longer appears on modern maps. Road signs leading toward it were removed long ago, and locals rarely mention it openly. But older residents remember when the church was once the heart of a small farming community. Families gathered there every Sunday. Weddings were held inside, Children were baptized there, until something happened that caused the entire congregation to abandon it, almost overnight. And what remains behind may not be entirely human. Historical records show Black Hollow Church opened in 1891, serving a remote farming community of nearly 40 families. For years, life in the settlement remained peaceful and uneventful. But by 1913, rumors began circulating. Church members reportedly started experiencing disturbing dreams after attending late-night prayer gatherings. Nightmares involving shadowy figures standing behind the preacher. Voices whispering during sermons. Children claiming they saw people inside the church who no one else noticed. At first, these stories were dismissed as superstition. Rural communities often spread folklore easily, but then came the final recorded service. According to surviving town documents, a revival meeting was held one autumn night, lasting well past midnight. Witness accounts later described strange behavior among attendees. Some parishioners began crying without explanation. Others claimed they felt watched from the corners of the room. One man reportedly screamed during prayer, claiming someone stood directly behind him, even though no one was there. Then panic erupted. Accounts differ, but several surviving testimonies claim the congregation fled the church suddenly, running into the night as if escaping something inside. The following morning, the church stood empty, and within weeks, many families relocated away from the area entirely. The church was locked and never officially reopened. For decades, Black Hollow Church remained abandoned, slowly deteriorating in isolation. Hunters and hikers occasionally stumbled across it, but few stayed long. Then, in the 1970s, urban explorers rediscovered the building, and strange reports began again. A group of teenagers visiting in 1978 claimed they heard singing inside the church late at night. Assuming pranksters were inside, they entered with flashlights, but the building was empty. Yet they insisted faint hymn-like voices echoed from somewhere deeper within the structure. Another group in 1986 reported footsteps walking behind them while they explored. Each time they turned around, nothing was visible, but their audio recording captured footsteps clearly, despite only 3 people being present. Perhaps the most chilling testimony came from a photographer named Mark Henson in 1999. Henson entered the church, alone during daylight, to photograph abandoned buildings. He reported feeling uneasy, but continued working. While setting up a camera near the altar, he heard someone whisper, "You shouldn't be here." Thinking another explorer arrived, he called out. No response. Moments later, he heard multiple whispers repeating the same phrase. His camera then malfunctioned, batteries dying instantly despite being freshly charged. Henson left immediately. Later, reviewing photos, he discovered something unsettling. In several shots, faint human-like silhouettes appeared standing between pews. Figures, he insists, were not present while photographing. He never returned. Interest in Black Hollow Church grew among paranormal enthusiasts, eventually drawing investigation teams. In 2012, a small documentary crew obtained permission from the landowner to film overnight inside the church. They installed cameras and audio equipment throughout the building. The first hours passed quietly. Then disturbances began. At approximately 1:20 a.m., one crew member reported hearing someone walking behind the altar. Cameras showed no one there. Shortly after, microphones recorded faint whispering voices. Then the atmosphere changed. One investigator suddenly became panicked, insisting someone was standing behind the camera crew watching them. Video footage shows the crew nervously scanning the room, yet no figure appears on camera. Moments later, loud banging noises echoed from inside the walls, as if someone struck the structure from within. Crew members rushed outside, but the most disturbing moment occurred afterward. One investigator refused to re-enter, claiming he saw multiple figures standing inside the church doorway, watching them leave. Footage captured, nothing visible. The team ended filming early, and according to interviews later, several members experienced nightmares for weeks afterward, involving shadowy congregations gathering in darkness. Researchers studying local history uncovered disturbing possibilities behind the church's abandonment. Some documents suggest the congregation practiced intense late-night revival rituals, including prolonged fasting and emotional sermons meant to induce spiritual experiences. Others speculate a tragedy may have occurred that was never officially recorded, possibly deaths or psychological breakdowns among members. Paranormal theorists propose a darker explanation. They believe emotional and psychological energy left behind during traumatic events can imprint onto locations. If fear, desperation, or mass hysteria occurred within the church, those emotional remnants could linger. Others claim something darker answered the congregation's intense rituals, something that never left. Visitors frequently report similar sensations: feeling watched, sudden cold spots inside the church, hearing faint singing when alone, and shadows moving where no light source should cast them. Today, Black Hollow Church continues decaying in isolation. The surrounding forest grows thicker each year, slowly reclaiming the structure. Few people visit anymore. Those who do rarely stay long. Locals still warn travelers not to wander near the old building after sunset. Some claim lights are occasionally seen flickering through broken windows late at night. Others swear faint hymn melodies drift through the trees when no one is present, whether caused by imagination, history, or something unexplained. The stories surrounding Black Hollow Church persist, and those who've stepped inside after dark often agree on one thing: when you stand alone in that abandoned sanctuary, it sometimes feels like a congregation is still gathered there, waiting, watching, praying, and perhaps hoping you'll stay for the service forever. Subscribe to Tales of the Dark, where every story gives you a nightmare.